International Teaching, Auditions, and Coping with Performance Nerves with Nikolaj Henriques. Stay inspired. Nikolaj, to start out, I was going to ask you about your work as principal bassoonist of the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra and your work playing principal, and also your work playing second bassoon. And so when you are playing principal bassoon, are there a few actions or techniques that you strive for?
It's a pleasure being here. I think it's a really interesting thing. This kind of role between first and second bassoon. I think very often that the kind of stereotypical idea of a solo bassoon and then a second bassoon like hiding away in the darkness is very is not very healthy. I think I think so much support comes from the second bassoon, and therefore I think that the second bassoon is the principal bassoon in other ways than the actual principal bassoon. I think it's very important to remember. For principal bassoon, I find that I generally I need two very important things. I need a sound that can play the solos and can project over the orchestra, and I need blending so that I can kind of be a chameleon with the clarinet and with the flute and the strings, and so these to have these kind of two abilities is something I always strive towards, and then just of course hopefully knowing the part well enough to be everywhere in the orchestra and to listen out more than you read your own part is of course a very important thing.
About playing second bassoon, are there playing techniques or roles that you focus on with playing second?
It's very much about having this kind of support, this big, nice, comforting sound that can carry the whole woodwind group and hopefully the whole orchestra. So to have this relaxed sound for me is very important. Of course, also with a lot of harmonics on top, so that it really adds to the whole structure of the woodwind instead of just that kind of anonymous sound that will be there and you don't hear anything from the conductor. They don't give you the hand. They don't say anything to you. But actually, how much are you really adding? So I think it's about finding that, and then of course one of the very important things on second bassoon is that you have material that can attack really well in all dynamics. I of course it's on bassoon in the tenor register. It's much easier to kind of sneak in and be a little bit more flexible that way. Where in the lower register, it's difficult, and I always find that if you have material that needs that goes far too much, then it's very easy to stick out, and so it's very much about the good attack, which I personally, not that I have discovered how to have good second bassoon reeds at all, but the one Christmas Eve many years ago that when I felt I had a good second bassoon reed, it had to do with the resistance of the reed not being too light. Actually, it's not about scraping away too much of the tip and just kind of so you just look at it and it goes bah. It's more that you actually have some resistance in it, so you can rely on your pressure and on your technique, and the note will speak the same.
Your work just all around the world. One that I was reading about is your work in Greece, and wanted to ask you, could you share with us about your work teaching there and at the El Sistema Europe Youth Orchestra?
Yes, I'll start by saying that I'm not an official El Sistema teacher, unfortunately. I might be one day, hopefully. But it's an absolutely fantastic project where the El Sistema tries to get everyone from different backgrounds and from different social environment together to play music and on different levels that kind of everyone comes together in one big orchestra. And I was very fortunate to go there and sort of the bassoon section for the youth orchestra in Athens, and it was a very amazing time there to realize how much everyone could come together and contribute, kind of no matter how gifted you were on your instrument. It was not at the end of the day what mattered, and they had way too many on each instrument, and just everyone sitting together and really making great music. I think on cross countries, and I yeah just it's a very very amazing project that I was lucky to be a part of.
Could you share with us a bit about how you cope with performance nerves and any advice with music performance anxiety?
Yes, I was very fortunate to do the Mozart concerto with Miyaga and CBSO last year. It was a different one because I only had 3 weeks notice to do the concerto. So in a way, I think it was good for me because the if you know for 2 years that you're gonna do something, you put all the pressure on yourself for so long, and it's such a journey. And of course, you learn a lot, and it's amazing. But in a way, if you just kind of have to get around it and get it out there, then it's a I felt that I was less nervous for that, even though I was less prepared. I was less nervous than when the first time I did a concerto with the orchestra was with our principal clarinet Ollie Gaines, was the Strauss duet Concertino, and that was more of a even though we were two on stage, and it was very comforting to be two standing there. It's we knew about it for a year before, so that so much more kind of pressure was built on top of that. But no, I have my ways of kind of getting prepared for these things. I like to do a lot of very slow practicing. I always find that practicing really slow and relying 100% on your air is somehow the only way that I can get connected with my own body. And then when I stand there on stage, I can really focus on the breathing and getting a very low breathing and very this connection with the air and the instrument is the way that the only comfort I find.
Uh-huh.
But no, I also do like to do some different power poses before going on stage, and different breathing techniques, and these extra things that I'm not 100% sure if they actually work, but placebo is an amazing effect at least.
Yes.
So yeah, I just have some small routine things that I go through, and yeah, but I think it's very individual. I always like to remind my students when they ask me how can if someone asks me how can I get rid of my nerves or get rid of my performance anxiety, I always say I don't believe that anyone can, and I don't believe that anyone should, because performance anxiety, or whatever you want to call it, nerves, adrenaline, excitement, you can you I don't think it's something we should be like try to get rid of, because the moment we get rid of it completely, I believe it's because we don't might be because we don't care as much. So see it as a instead of how do I get rid of performance anxiety, how do I cope with it the best way, and learn how to live with it. And that's so I always see like, okay, my nerves are here. I see you and I address you, and you're part of this, and we're going to go through this together, not as I'm, you're my worst enemy, go away. Because I think when it's in you, it's already there. And then the last thing I'll say is, um, I got this advice from someone that when I think it was the day before, I was very nervous for something, and she said to me, well, remember that being nervous now is great, because you don't have to play it now. You'll be less nervous when you actually have to play it. So being nervous ahead is actually all right. Just be happy, and you're not going to be as nervous in the moment. Hopefully, I think I heard this in a TED talk. I can't believe from who, but the that you take the arms above the head and kind of spread out the body as much as possible. Spread out the hands as well, the fingers, and you breathe really low, and you kind of it's this kind of fight or flee thing that you
Fight
kind
or
of get your
flight.
body, yeah, you get your body ready to not go away, and this is the way that you kind of spread out your whole body and take deep breaths and smile and just really and walk around. Don't be stiff. And yeah, I then kind of walk around with my arms over my head for half a minute or a minute or so. It's really nice actually. Even though you might look a bit silly while doing it, it's I find that it works really well.
With running too, where you see people where they're just like trying to keep their bodies warm, before they do their race, or
Totally.
it's
I think it's the same with boxing. Actually, you see that the great boxers, they come on stage with like really, they're pumped up with adrenaline, and you kind of always feel before you see two people fight, you always kind of feel like this person will win. And I have a little bit the same idea that like if I pump myself up to winning that way, then hopefully that doesn't come off too aggressive, but puts myself in a good mood.
It'd be wonderful to hear a bit more about your practice.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, with the Mozart bassoon concerto, of course, it's something I have been practicing a lot in different ways, and I always find going back to practicing it in slow motion with with legato, with no articulation, no tongue to disturb the air and disturb the phrasing, disturb the intonation, and then practice it with a drone, and just really slow legato, low, good drone, bottom B flat. It's just such a way to find this kind of earthiness in the sound and really enjoy it. I find very nice to do. And then with having quite an idea of what kind of landscape you wanna show. So if you know where you are going all the time, it's gonna be much easier. Instead, if you find it in the moment, it's of course can be very exciting and impressive. But certainly I feel more comfortable if I know where I'm gonna go. So where I'm going to put my air. That's how I like to prepare a lot. For daily practicing, I really believe quite much in basics. There's I find on the Zoom quite often a little bit of lack of basics. Many people do a lot of scales, a lot of arpeggios, a lot of yeah, I've done all the chromatic and minor, major, but like yeah, and that's good. We need that as well. But I also find that doing the simple like attack piano, forte, diminuendo, crescendo, vibrato, double tongue, single tongue, all these different things I find super useful to do on a daily basis. I certainly did a lot when I was studying, especially. Um, and I have this. I mean, my professor Ole Christian Dahl, he wrote this book called Drills, which is a great system, I think, and I have used it a lot. I think it's important that you find your own way around it. There's a lot of exercises in there, and it's not, I think, possible to get through the whole thing every day, because it's a lot. But it's very nice to kind of, especially in the beginning. But it's a very nice thing to then you take the exercises that really works for you, and especially the exercises that you don't feel very comfortable with, because that's probably the ones that you need to get better at. And then I have this system, and I like to put them on the stand, kind of like uh, and start from the beginning. I write down always what I'm about to do, and then I write down a little practice plan, and then try to get around all those basics as one part of it, so that when you then go over to do the music, you can kind of just release that and not think too much about the basics. Hopefully, I find it very useful with excerpts, that when you practice excerpts, I feel like I've used a lot of time practicing the excerpts, just playing them from the beginning to the end a lot of times, and I kind of always have the same problems with them anyway. So when I know that I have to play some excerpts in the orchestra for an audition or whatever, I like to start where I know my struggles are going to be. So if I'm going to play Beethoven 4, then I don't start playing just out of the blue, because it might work, but it might not work. No matter, it's not going to be practicing. So I always start practicing double tone, just on the reed and on single notes. Then I develop and I play it legato and really kind of shape it with the air how I want to create it, and then I practice the difficult combinations by itself, and then I start to do it slowly, original, and speed it up slightly, and maybe in different rhythms and stuff, but never trying to just go into the water without dipping your toe in the water. I'm from Scandinavia, and you don't do that. The water might be very cold.
It was great hearing about your practice plan too, or like your journal. Do you like keep the practice journals, and then just to be able to look back on what you've worked on or improved? Or...
Not at all. I probably should do. I did when I studied. I had like more of like a sheet of what I did every day. I wanted to look for like stuff, and that I kept there to then kind of go back and see. Okay, I've done. I think it's very useful to go back maybe a week or two, and you can see. Okay, I've actually done my scales every single day. But I've not done my, and I always find I've done the pieces every single day. Yeah, you always end up doing that, but I've actually not done my arpeggios or my vibrato or my double tone at all. So then maybe switch it around and use a little bit less time on this and more time on that. But I don't know. I don't keep them. I just I have one line from today actually just next to me, and I can see that I got 7 out of 8 ticks.
Wow.
So there's still a little bit left, but then I was too late to make that happen. But then I know I'll start with that tomorrow, so I'm sure that I'll get through that.
It'd be great to hear some of your favorite bassoon works.
Yes, of course there are many good pieces. That's the thing; it's hard, isn't it? No, for solo things, I one of the things I had the most fun with was playing Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, the cello flute concerto. There are 4 different ones. I played the A major for my final recital, and such an amazing piece. And I think that all 4 of them are absolutely amazing. The D minor one very tricky. They're all tricky, but and there's a great recordings of Sergio Salini on Spotify. Absolutely wonderful playing and so exciting music. It kind of goes both back in time to Baroque, and well, it's Baroque, but it also looks so much forward into the classical and even romantic era. I find it so exciting. So that's certainly something I enjoy playing, and yeah, the Strauss duet concertino is another one that I found really. In general, these solo pieces with other instruments I like very much. Also, the Haydn Symphony of Musicante is such a great piece, and it makes it very enjoyable to play with your colleagues. But yeah, Mozart Bassoon Concerto. I mean, it might be an unpopular opinion, but I actually do like that piece quite a lot. When is especially when taken out of the old traditions and not not perform like you've heard it before. I think there can be a lot of freedom and a lot of yes, as long as you can. Yes, as long as it's the way you really want to perform it, I think there's quite a lot of freedom.
So what do you do for your cadenza?
I wish that I could just make it up on the spot, but I write I write it before, and yeah, I like to take a lot of inspirations from the Mozart operas, which of course with the second movement makes a lot of sense, but actually for all of the cadenzas, I find that it makes a lot of sense to look towards the Mozart operas and take small quotes from there, and yeah, and I also think not making them too complicated, because I very often hear a lot of this, and then we progress to this chord, and then it goes over here, and blah, blah, and that kind of takes me out of the enjoyment. I think it's important to remember with the cadenza that you have practiced it a lot of times, you have heard a lot of times, but the audience is only going to hear it once. So it's I have this idea that it should be quite simple and enjoyable.
If you listen to quite a few other cadenzas by others before you write your own.
Yeah, I mean, I think in an ideal world, it would have been cool to not have heard a lot of others and just kind of come up with your own. But no, I've certainly heard a lot of cadenzas. I've also played other people's cadenzas for early on, and I still take a lot of inspiration from them, and small things. So no, I listen to everyone and then steal a little bit and then make up a little bit and kind of try to make it work for me. And I also hope that some people hear my cadenzas and steal some from me. So I hope that it's kind of a give and take.
Any course, that you wish had been offered?
One thing that I've always thought was very interesting that we never really had, and I've never really experienced it. Of course, you can get this if you're in an orchestral academy, but I always found that when I sat down in the orchestra in university and played, there was no one there to hear how I played and give me advice. There was a conductor and very often conducting students who knew even less about what I was doing. So I would say to have, if there was a system where where my where my teacher could have been next to me, listening or playing alongside with me. Of course, it's a very difficult thing to actually make possible, but something like that you could then really get feedback on your orchestral playing. Because I very late in my studies I started playing orchestra parts when I was preparing for my trials and going into professional orchestras, and I brought the first and the second bassoon part to my teachers, and we would play together, and I felt that I learned so much, and it's really the same for me now when my students come and play a solo piece for me, and it's great, and I can try to help them and inspire them and speak about technique and music and stuff. But actually, what I do on a day-to-day basis is not playing Mozart or Weber or Saint-Saëns. It's actually sitting down and play Beethoven symphonies, and this is something that I always find difficult, to how to actually pass on what I have learned from actually doing these pieces. How do I pass that on to someone else when that is actually what they are probably gonna do as well? So something with that, and then I wish that I would have paid a little bit more attention in your master training. It was too late that I found out that connecting the voice and the harmonies actually is very, very important, and I was not paying enough attention to that at the time. I wish I would have used more, but my class was very early in the morning.
I think they all were. They always were in the morning.
And of course, then you can go on to an orchestral academy or to an orchestra scheme or something. We have in our orchestra we have a scheme that the conservatory students can apply for, and then they can actually sit in and listen. But then again, they will sit in and they will listen, or they will maybe play a little bit and get feedback, and that's such a good way to combine what you learn practical with the technical.
I wanted to ask about your bassoon.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you a bit about the bassoon. I played quite a lot of different bassoons actually in my time. I started out on a Fox, then went to a Yamaha, then went to another Fox. Then I bought a Heckel 12,000 that I absolutely love. It was really it was a gorgeous instrument. It was really beautiful singing, very charming, very elegant, and I to this day there are many things about that instrument that I miss, and it had such a personality, and but at the time when I was in Danish radio, playing with other people who had new Heckel bassoons, I felt like I could simply not produce a big enough sound, and then I started. I borrowed one of my colleagues' 16,000 Heckel, and it had a massive sound, super heavy to play, but I really liked the sound quality of it. And then I started to search for my own, and I was so lucky to find a 16,000 Heckel that someone had waited for 7-8 years, and I remember calling him and say, why are you selling it? And he said, I've actually changed my career. So he was while waiting. So he has become a Michelin star chef. in meanwhile, so he did not need a 16,000 Heckel, but I did, and so I bought it. It's 4 or 5 years ago, I think, and. Yeah, I just I went to try it and I just fell in love with it immediately. It was the kind of the sound of the instrument that really appealed to me, and it was not the most even instrument, and it was not super open. But then with my I'm lucky to have a good bassoon repairman, Japan Town in Hamburg, and he has done an amazing job on overhauling it, and we've opened a lot of the holes and a lot of the keys, so the way that the pad hits the holes and stuff are quite open, so it's created this resonance and in the instrument, and yeah, then I at the moment I play a CC1 crook, or boko, whatever you like to call it, and I've been playing CCXL for a long time. I do not find, to be honest, I don't find that the crooks, that what is actually on the crook really matters as much as I find that two CC1 crooks can be just as different as a CC1 and a CCXL. I find them so I always like to experiment with different types of crooks, and then I have a Yamaha PN super vocal from my high stuff. I find it very reliable to play to play a Ravel Piano Concerto and stuff like that on, and yeah, I don't know if I have any more bassoon. A breath builder. I find very nice to have in your arsenal, and yeah, also a tuner and a metronome that is not on your phone.
So have you kept your Yamaha? Do you have a backup horn?
I unfortunately don't have a backup horn. I would have been too fortunate to have that. I'm very lucky that my colleague Margaret, who's also been talking to you guys, she has two wonderful Heckel bassoons. So I have a deal with her that if something terrible should happen, I can borrow one from her.
What were the two model Foxes you had earlier?
I played on a Renard to start out with. That was not my own. That was from the marching band I was in. Yeah, I think so, but to be honest, I'm not completely sure. And then I bought my own. That was the first bassoon I bought myself. That was at 601, and I actually went to the. So I ordered it and with all the key mechanism, blah, 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 and then I went with my teacher at the time, Mogens, to the factory, and we spent a week there and did a lot of bassoon nerding, and that was an absolutely amazing thing to walk around in the factory and see everything.
In South Whitley.
In South Whitley, yeah. I still remember coming into the breakfast restaurant there, super like nice, typical American breakfast restaurant, and came in there, and then the waitress there, she looked at us and she saw we had one bassoon each, and she said, "Ah, do you guys play the bassoon or the oboe?" And and I said, "We play the bassoon." Ah, yeah, because we can see you going to the Fox factory, and they knew nothing about the instruments, had never seen any before, but they knew that if you had this kind of case, you played either the bassoon or the oboe. So that was really funny. So lovely place to visit. Really, really recommend it. And fun to see how everything is made, and just try a million different things. And, yeah.
Nice experience. It's changed a lot. When I bought my first Fox, I bought it from Hugo Fox, and the factory was still in its chicken coop.
Yeah, that was the one that burned down. Is that right?
It's changed a lot. Well, the factory burned down, not the chicken coop.
Yeah.
Chicken coop, then they built the factory and it burned down.
Yeah, so it's I bought it from Hugo's son, so that was at that time. Alan, yeah, yeah.
This was what, a few years ago.
Yeah, yeah, it's around 10 years ago, I think. Yeah.
Alan sold the company now, of course. And then I should know the name right away. He's a basketball fan, among other things. A marvelous entrepreneur who's really developed it and helped develop the economics of that small community. And he's now turned it over to his sons to operate right now. And I had my phone here. The name's not coming to me as quickly as it should. He's a marvelous fellow.
Thank you so much for your time. And Richard, thank you so much for joining.